that's the last time I'm gonna have to redo that. This video has been constantly copyright claimed and blocked from uploading by whatever his name's estate, the people that own Berserk. Apparently they don't like my meme. Discount Guts is in fact Discount Guts. It's not Arngrim, this is Guts. Discount Guts. But Guts nonetheless. So, he's the best DPS we've got. And likely to remain the best DPS we have for a decent amount of time. Like, obviously we're gonna see new units dealing a little bit more damage and a little bit more damage every release. But he has kind of a niche that is exclusive to him so far. Flinch Resist on skilling is not unique to him, but it is very nice to have. He also has, let's say 50% chance to ignore enemy Dark Resist. Not reduce it, not ignore 50%, to just ignore. 100% of the enemy's resistance ignored. I don't know the exact value on that, but I know when I was doing that Falmer video, Falmer has 3000 Dark Resist, so he's immune to all elements during his phase change, and other than that he has ridiculous stats, so he's immune to all damage other than that phase change. In the video, I specifically waited until he used his ultimate and then chased him around with Discount Guts so that he would have no buffs and be easily killed. That's why he died so easily. It's all just about timing at that point. But in general, he has those resistances, and Discount Guts can easily deal very noticeable chip during the 3000 resist. So whatever the exact value is, it's pretty high. It's reliable enough that you don't need to use Trish on him, and you're still going to be able to do solid DPS. On top of that, all three of his skills are good. His S3 deals the most damage. It's not his best skill. I would say his S2 is his best skill. It does a little bit less hits, but it's much quicker. The S3 also immediately teleports you to the enemy and does not teleport behind you, which means if you're currently DPSing the enemy from behind and you use it, you're not going to go in front of the enemy and lose your back attacks. You know, pro-con on that. It's nice to be able to use a skill to put you behind the enemy. It's terrible when that skill puts you in front of the enemy instead. So for him, just make sure you're behind the enemy and you're good. And in general, you're not going to use that skill unless you need to get close to the enemy or you've already used all of his S1 and S2. His DPS, general play DPS. People like to talk about the character's hypothetical best DPS if they had unlimited stocks and stuff like that. In general play, his DPS is way above any other character. Actually dealing with how many stocks you have, how quickly you can dish out your skills, how often you can expect to refill them, he has really good DPS. He's improved all of my kill times by around 50% or so. He's a great unit. He also has 50% physical mitigation. Irrelevant. Like, it's there. You can see he's somewhat bulky here, but not bulky enough that you're gonna use him for his durability. Diaz, on the other hand, this is about the best thing he can do. That's it. He can get 63k, technically up to 70k. I don't have the skills to do that, but 70k strength. He can get more strength than he has caps. Now, obviously you put additional caps on him and he has more, but yeah, that should tell you all you need to know about him. And by that I mean he is worthless. He is a character that is totally gimped by having low caps. In PvE, he has low caps. In PvP, everything else that's wrong with this kit is still wrong with this kit. His S3 is his best skill by a mile, and it has a extremely long animation and not that many hits. Like, for how long the animation is, it has a fairly low hit count for a dual wielder. His S2 puts him behind the enemy. I just talked about this. It's great when you get put behind the enemy when you're in front of them, but then if you use that skill again, now you're in front of the enemy. So that's honestly his best skill, and because it constantly swaps your position, it makes it terrible. S1, he, for some reason, has a fancy S1, a mechanic we rarely see now. His S1 changes between a wave, just Claude's skill reskin, and if you're close to the enemy, he'll slap his sword on the ground and do a circle AoE around him. And there's no real difference between the two as far as I can tell. They both seem to hit the same. Maybe they don't hit the same amount of times, but it's not enough that it matters. It's not like if you use the S1 in close range, it suddenly becomes good DPS. It's still not good. It's your most spammable option, and that's the only reason it is an option. If his S2 didn't put you behind the enemy, or if you're not relying on surprise attack or back attacks in general, then you'll spam his S2. He has a mechanic on his trait that refills a random stock every time he kills an enemy, and also has a chance to gain 1 SCT second on the skill that crits if you get skill crit. It's not good. Like, he can kill normal mobs well in PvE, but he doesn't have any loot bonus or anything, so there's no reason you would use him for general farming over another unit. I guess if you really need a character to beat the story, he can do that. But Discount Guts can do that even better. He also has 50% reduced... Well, that actually, I did leave one thing out. He can use two-handed or dual-wield for free. It's built into his kit. In PvE, you use two-handed, or use dual-wield. In PvP, you use two-handed. So in PvE, since you're using dual-wield, he has 20% reduced magic damage. It's irrelevant. Like, 20% is just nothing at this point. In PvP, you have 50%, and I think with his paids, you get 70%. I think it's not added, or not multiplicative, it's additive, so I'm pretty sure that bumps it up to 70%. Even with that 70%, he's just gonna die to mages still in PvP. So don't count on that to make him good. He doesn't play well at all in PvP. In a future meta, maybe he's gonna come around. For now, if his trait had a 50% chance to stop the enemy from casting a spell and take their MP, he would still not be good. That would be way better than what it does, and it would still not be good. So, yeah. As far as both of the characters and their arcs, Discount Guts, pull for him. If you have time, I tried to get this video up earlier. It was up for like a day, and then it got pulled down to the copyright, and now I'm redoing it for the last time. I don't even know if it'll finish being approved by YouTube before the banners are over, but if you have time, go for Discount Guts. He's an amazing unit. His arc is a really nice quality of life arc to have. The arc has a passive 100% EXP bonus just for having it equipped. So you can use that to replace Granadas. You never have to worry about juggling those friends anymore. You can just have that up nonstop. If you get him, he's a great unit. For Diaz, his arc is actually very good. The ether reward on it is going to be best in slot, especially on Discount Guts, because it's 20% more pursuit damage, and when you already have 300k caps, having 20% more of your pursuits is a lot more important than having 1,100 more caps. And the stats on that Ether Reward are actually still pretty good. Other than that, it also has spiritual training, I believe. Spiritual something. It's a skill that makes it so that when you get hit, you have a chance to get 100% of your defense added into your defense for that hit alone. Triggers often enough, it'll be very useful if you have it. You'll teach it to a lot of your characters. It'll be very commonly used in PvP. You'll want that skill. I don't think it's worth chasing either of them. If you're gonna pull on the banner, that's the thing you want. If you get DS, I got a whole bunch of DS chasing it. I got it because mental training is actually massive, or spiritual training. It's spiritual training, that's what it is for sure. It's a massive bonus. It's a 50% final reduction to the damage you take from physical attacks, effectively. So, long term, it's going to be worth it. I pulled quite a bit on his banner to get it, got a bunch of him. He's just a very disappointing unit. Other than that, this will most likely be my last video that I upload on LC for the foreseeable future. I might come back for the next... I will definitely come back for the next collab, but since I'm not going to be playing in between, I just don't have time. I'm not going to have a lot of resources, and I blew through most of my resources chasing that arc. Don't recommend it, but I did it. And if I don't get the characters, then I generally don't do videos on the characters because the game has too much that you have to play firsthand to really gauge the performance of a character. Training Zone is cool and all, but it's never anything close to what the current content is, and it's always heavily skewed in favor of that character. The break values are either really low, so the character seems like they break really well, or it has the now they have all races, but it has the races the character needs to perform at its highest level, but then you test it in normal content and it's much weaker. It's just not worth doing a video to review a character that you don't get. You won't know enough about it to give people a fair review. But other than that, I do plan on doing some other content soon-ish. I've been working on an RO server, a Maple server, and a Tree of Savior server. Also been helping out with some Granada server updates, which those are generally out of my hands, so those will be what they are. But the stuff I'm more directly working on, they're going to be having me review the content for those servers once those servers are in a playable state. Before the servers go live, I'll be showing people what kind of customizations they have. And other than that, I do want to look at Palworld again. I haven't played since the last video I made, which is quite outdated. There's a lot of new content I haven't explored, but I want to take a look at that, before Nintendo shuts it down, because, Nintendo is Nintendo, and no one is allowed to make games other than Nintendo, apparently, in Japan. They have claimed ownership over the right to code video games. Terrible, terrible thing. Hate the company for that. Loved Nintendo early on. These days, they use the worst possible tactics to basically declare themselves as a monopoly in the market. Apparently throwing a ball to capture something is something they created. Go figure. I remember back in the Atari days, we had plenty of things that effectively boiled down to throw object, catch enemy, but apparently Nintendo invented it. Other than ranting on that, I'll be making content on those games later on. I'll be hopefully doing some streams and making content on that server, the Tree of Savior server first. I do want to get into the other ones, but they're not even close to release, so there just won't be any content for me to review on the Maple server or the RO server. And that's pretty well it. There's a couple other games I need to go back and finish my mod on Kenshi as well, which I will stream that once I have it finished, but That's another thing that just takes a lot of time, and I got into issues with Steam not letting me update the mod, which I had to go through their support and figure out why I can't upload a mod update. Apparently my mod is too dirty, even though it's just the game that they host. It doesn't change anything as far as the content of the game. But it is not fit for their Christian servers. Whatever with that. It'll happen when it happens. I'll finish that mod. It'll be prettied up. The dialogue will all be fixed. Other than that, this will probably be it for a while. When I do come back, I should upload more regularly, and I'll have a wider variety of content. Till then, later.